The Galactic Council Chamber was a vast, circular space suspended above the glowing core of an artificial star. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiers of the auditorium, their faces illuminated by the pulsating light of the core. Tension crackled in the air as delegates hurled accusations at one another, their voices rising in a cacophony of blame. "The Krythak fleets have ravaged my homeworld for centuries," roared Ambassador Callus of the Uvran Collective, his scaled hands clenched into fists. "And now you expect us to stand beside them as allies." A Krythak warlord, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming in the light, leaned forward with a predatory grin. "Perhaps if your people weren't so weak, we wouldn't have seen them as easy prey. The galaxy belongs to the strong." "Enough," boomed the voice of Counselor Theth, a towering Altheri whose translucent skin shimmered with shifting colors. The elder being raised a hand, and the murmurs subsided. "We did not convene to rehash old grievances. The signal cannot be ignored. It may hold the key to stabilizing the galaxy, and it is in our mutual interest to investigate it." A holo display flickered to life above the center of the chamber, showing a rotating image of a distant star system. The signal's frequency pulsed like a heartbeat, transmitting a cryptic sequence that no species had been able to decipher. Speculations about its origin ranged from a lost precursor race to a weapon of unimaginable power. From the human delegations section, Commander Elias Kane stepped forward. His dark blue uniform was crisp, adorned only with the emblem of the Earth Alliance, a stylized globe encircled by stars. He cleared his throat and addressed the council with a steady voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, humanity understands the stakes here. This signal is not just a scientific curiosity, it's a lifeline. Our galaxy is on the brink of collapse. Wars, famine, and distrust have brought us all to the edge. If this beacon truly holds the power to change the tides, then we must act now. Humanity is ready to lead the expedition." A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. The Krythak warlord barked a laugh. "And why should the youngest species among us take the lead? You barely understand the galaxy you're so eager to save." Kane didn't flinch. "Perhaps that's why we're the best choice. We don't carry the burdens of your centuries-old grudges. Humanity has made its mistakes, but we've also learned how to unite in the face of destruction. Let us prove we're worthy of your trust." Counselor Theth regarded Kane with an inscrutable expression. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken doubts. Finally, the Altheri leader nodded. "Very well. Humanity will lead, but this will not be a solitary mission. Representatives from each faction will accompany you. Cooperation is non-negotiable." As Kane inclined his head in gratitude, he noticed the wary glances exchanged among the other delegates. He knew this was just the beginning of the battle. Outside the chamber, Kane met with his human crew aboard the Luminary, their flagship. The towering vessel gleamed in the shipyard's light, a testament to humanity's ingenuity. "Are we ready for this?" asked Dr. Elena Voss, a brilliant astrophysicist whose expertise was vital for the mission. Kane offered a faint smile. "No, but we're going anyway. The galaxy needs a beacon, and if no one else can light the way, we will." The luminary hummed with activity as the final preparations for departure were underway. In the central conference room, representatives of the Krythak, Altheri, and Uvran Collective sat in strained silence around a holographic star map. The tension was palpable, as if even the ship's systems could sense the animosity simmering beneath the surface. Commander Kane stood at the head of the table, his expression calm, but his mind racing. He knew that the mission's success hinged not just on uncovering the secrets of the beacon, but on ensuring the factions didn't tear each other apart before they got there. "Our first destination," Kane began, gesturing to the map, "is the Omega Expanse. The signal source lies beyond a region of unstable space. We'll need to work together to navigate it." Ambassador Callus of the Uvran Collective scoffed, his scaled tail flicking in irritation. Together, you assume much, Commander. The Krythak have never been capable of collaboration, only destruction. Commander Rax, the Krythak representative, leaned forward, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Your fear is noted, Yvren. Perhaps you should leave the dangerous work to those of us with spines. Before Callus could retort, the Althari representative, Counselor Lirath, interjected in a voice like chimes in the wind. Enough. Petty squabbles will not serve us here. Humanity has extended its hand to us all. The least we can do is refrain from biting it. Rax's multifaceted eyes glimmered with disdain, but he fell silent. Dr. Alina Voss took the opportunity to step forward, her tone sharp but measured. If I may remind everyone, the energy field surrounding the beacon has baffled our best scientists for decades. Its frequency shifts unpredictably, and its intensity grows stronger the closer we get. Each of your species brings unique technology and knowledge to this mission. Without cooperation, we won't even make it past the first hurdle. The group exchanged uneasy glances. Even Rax seemed to recognize the truth in her words. As the luminary entered the Omega expanse, the full scale of the challenge became apparent. Space itself was fractured, with gravitational anomalies warping the stars into swirling ribbons of light. The ship's shields flared as they brushed against invisible currents of energy. We're entering the first instability zone, said Lieutenant Arun Malik, the ship's navigator. Gravitational spikes detected at 40-degree intervals. Deploy stabilizers, Kane ordered. He turned to the representatives gathered on the bridge. This is where your expertise comes in. Krythak, your shielding technology is second to none. We'll need it to reinforce our defenses. Yvren, your ships have the most precise scanners in the galaxy. Help us map a path through. Althari, your energy manipulation tech can help us neutralize the anomalies. The factions hesitated, old habits of mistrust rearing their heads. But as the ship shuddered under the strain of the expanse, necessity trumped animosity. Hours later, the bridge was a hive of activity. Krythak engineers worked alongside Yvren scientists, while Althari technicians coordinated with human crew members. The anomalies tested them at every turn, forcing them to improvise solutions on the fly. At one point, a sudden gravitational surge sent the ship spiraling. Commander Rax personally stabilized the shields, earning an uneasy nod of thanks from Callus. By the time they reached the expanse's edge, the luminary was battered but intact. Kane surveyed the exhausted crew and representatives, a flicker of hope in his chest. See, he said, breaking the silence, when we work together, we can achieve the impossible. Rax's mandibles clicked, his tone begrudging. Perhaps, but don't think this makes us friends, human. Kane chuckled softly. I'll settle for allies, for now. As the signal source loomed closer, the fragile alliances aboard the luminary seemed stronger than before. But Kane knew this was only the beginning. The deeper they ventured, the more the shadows of distrust would test their unity. The luminary emerged from the Omega expanse into a region of space unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Massive energy currents, glowing in ethereal shades of blue and gold, swirled around a colossal structure suspended in the void. It resembled a titanic star-shaped lattice of metal and crystal, its edges shimmering with faint light. That's it, Dr. Voss whispered in awe, her eyes fixed on the holographic display of the structure. The beacon. The Krythak representative, Commander Rax, crossed his arms, his mandibles twitching in what might have been unease. It looks more like a trap than a treasure. Callus of the Yvren Collective nodded, his reptilian eyes narrowing. Something that powerful doesn't survive the eons without a way to protect itself. Kane ignored their bickering and turned to Lieutenant Malik. Status. The energy readings are off the charts, Malik replied. Gravitational distortions, electromagnetic spikes. It's a miracle the structure hasn't torn itself apart. As Kane studied the structure, a faint pulse of light emanated from its core, sending ripples through the surrounding space. The ship shuddered slightly and alarms flared. "Sir, that pulse disrupted our sensors," Malik said, his voice tense. "And it's not random, it's scanning us." The holographic display blinked, and a sequence of symbols scrolled across the screen. They were indecipherable at first, a jumble of alien characters that none of the translators could make sense of. Then they abruptly shifted into several recognizable languages, including English. "Prove your unity." The message was clear, but its implications were not. Kane turned to Dr. Voss, who shook her head bewildered. "It's a test," she said slowly. "The beacon isn't just giving us knowledge, it's deciding if we're worthy to receive it." A smaller vessel, equipped with advanced shielding and piloted by a mix of human and alien crew members, was deployed from the luminary. As it approached the beacon, the ship's interior lights dimmed, and a new sequence of symbols appeared on their displays. The first challenge had begun. The task required the team to align a series of energy nodes surrounding the beacon, each of which resonated at a different frequency. It became immediately clear that this puzzle was designed for cooperation. Each species aboard had specialized knowledge needed to solve it. "This node's frequency is fluctuating," Dr. Voss said, examining a glowing panel. "Altheri, your energy manipulation tech might stabilize it." Counselor Lireth nodded, her translucent hands moving in fluid, deliberate gestures. The node's glow steadied, but another destabilized. "Ephraim," Kane called out, "can you track the energy flow to the next node?" Kellis grumbled but complied, his claws dancing over the control panel. "I see it. Rerouting now." Just as the team began to gain momentum, alarms blared. The Krythak sabotage, planted days earlier, activated, sending a surge of destabilizing energy through the system. The entire structure groaned, and parts of the lattice flickered ominously. "What have you done?" Kellis hissed, rounding on Rax. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Rax said, though the faint satisfaction in his tone betrayed him. Kane stepped between them, his voice sharp. "Enough. We fix this now, or none of us will leave here alive." With time running out, the crew scrambled to stabilize the system. The Krythak sabotage, though destructive, had revealed a hidden aspect of the beacon, a secondary layer of defense designed to repel intruders. By working together under Kane's command, the team managed to reprogram the beacon's response, diffusing the immediate threat. As the final node aligned, the beacon emitted a deep, resonant hum. The swirling energy fields around it calmed, and a passage opened, leading to its core. Kane looked at the team, their faces wearied but resolute. "That was just the beginning," he said. "Whatever's in there, it's going to test us even harder. We need to stay united, or we'll fail." The Krythak representative chuckled, though there was less venom in his voice now. "If we do fail, human, I'll at least enjoy watching you squirm first." Kane smirked. "Let's make sure it doesn't come to that." As the team prepared to enter the core, the beacon's faint hum grew louder, like the beating of a vast, cosmic heart. The real challenge was about to begin. The team stood at the threshold of the beacon's core, a shimmering vortex of energy that pulsed with an almost sentient awareness. Beyond it lay a chamber that defied their understanding of space and physics. The walls of the room were both solid and fluid, shifting between intricate crystal lattices and rippling waves of light. "It's alive," Dr. Voss murmured, her voice tinged with awe. Kane adjusted his comms and motioned for the group to move forward. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into." As they stepped into the chamber, the vortex sealed behind them, leaving them bathed in the soft glow of the walls. Strange symbols began to materialize in the air, swirling around them like spectral constellations. "Another test," Kellis hissed, his reptilian eyes darting warily. "Or a message," Counselor Lireth suggested, her luminous form shimmering faintly. She extended a hand, letting the symbol swirl around her fingers. It feels familiar somehow. The symbols coalesced into a single, pulsating sigil that hung in the air, and a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. It wasn't a voice in the traditional sense. It reverberated in their minds, bypassing language entirely. Unity requires sacrifice. Demonstrate trust or be consumed by division. The ground beneath them shifted, and the chamber transformed. Platforms and walls rose and fell, creating a labyrinth that forced the group to split into pairs. Kane found himself with Rax, much to his dismay, while Voss was paired with Lyrith and Callus with a young human engineer named Nadia. Kane and Rax, the human commander and the Krythak warlord, navigated a series of narrow corridors filled with rotating energy barriers. Each barrier required precise timing and coordination to pass through unscathed. "Move faster, human," Rax growled as Kane barely dodged a searing beam of light. "Maybe if you spent less time complaining and more time helping, we'd be out of here already," Kane snapped back. Rax's mandibles clicked in irritation, but after another near miss, he grudgingly began to cooperate. Together, they devised a system. Rax would use his advanced reflexes to identify patterns in the barriers, while Kane handled the timing to shut down the mechanisms. By the time they cleared the maze, both men were breathing heavily but had developed a grudging respect for each other. Voss and Lyrith. In their section of the labyrinth, Voss and Lyrith encountered a series of puzzles involving harmonized energy frequencies. The glowing platforms required both of them to synchronize their movements and actions perfectly to progress. "I don't think this is just a test of intellect," Voss said as she adjusted a glowing control panel. "It's testing our ability to work as equals." Lyrith nodded, her translucent hands deftly manipulating the energy flows. "It is a reflection of the message, the cost of unity." As they reached the final platform, the chamber shook violently, and the pair barely managed to stabilize the system, their bond solidified by the experience. Callus and Nadia. Callus and Nadia faced a physical challenge, crossing a series of collapsing bridges over a void that seemed to stretch into infinity. At first, Callus insisted on going ahead, confident in his superior strength and agility. "You'll only slow me down," he growled. Maybe Nadia shot back, "but the platforms need 2 sets of pressure to activate. You can't do this alone." Reluctantly, Callus worked with her, and as they navigated the treacherous path, he began to see the value in her resourcefulness. By the time they reached the end, his disdain had softened into respect. The 3 groups reunited in the chamber's center, where the sigil reappeared, glowing brighter than before. "You have demonstrated trust, but trust must endure under greater strain. Proceed to the next trial." Before anyone could speak, the floor beneath them dissolved, and they plummeted into a new chamber, darker and more foreboding than the last. "This is getting old," Rax muttered, though his tone was less hostile now. Kane adjusted his stance, his determination undimmed. "If the beacon wants unity, it's going to get it. Let's show it we're ready." The next test awaited, and the stakes had never been higher. The team landed on a smooth, metallic platform surrounded by an endless void. Above them, faint motes of light danced in constellations, forming fleeting patterns that seemed to whisper forgotten truths. The platform began to shift, separating them into individual circles of light. Each member stood isolated, the void pressing in around them. "Commander?" Nadia's voice was laced with panic, but her words faded as the void absorbed the sound. Kane tried to respond, but no one could hear him. A deep, resonant voice echoed in his mind. "Unity requires understanding. Understanding requires truth. Face your past, or you will fail." Kane's trial. The void before Kane twisted, revealing a vivid memory. He was back on Earth, standing amidst the smoking ruins of a devastated city. Bodies lay strewn across the rubble, and the acrid scent of burnt metal and flesh filled the air. This was New Prague, one of humanity's last colonies destroyed during the Third Galactic War. In the memory, Kane was a younger officer leading a desperate retreat. A group of civilians, including children, huddled in a corner, crying for help. His commanding officer barked at him to leave them behind and secure their escape route. He hesitated, torn between duty and morality. The image froze, the voice returning to ask, "Would you sacrifice the few for the many, or would you defy your orders to save them?" Kane clenched his fists. He remembered what he chose. He left the civilians behind. The guilt haunted him to this day. "I didn't have a choice," he whispered, but even as the words left his lips, he knew they were hollow. The memory dissolved, and another voice, his own, spoke. "Unity requires hard decisions, but guilt can't destroy you. Learn and move forward." Rax's trial. Rax found himself on the Krythak homeworld, standing before a council of elders. It was the moment he had risen to power, after defying an order to annihilate a neighboring world. The elders had demanded destruction, but Rax had spared the world, seeing it as a chance for peace. "You failed your people," one elder spat. "You weakened us by showing mercy." But as Rax looked deeper, he saw the faces of those he had saved. Entire generations of beings lived because of his defiance. "I didn't fail," Rax growled. "I saved them, and I'd do it again." The vision faded, leaving Rax with a sense of vindication. Voss's trial. Dr. Voss's void filled with an image of her daughter, Anna, left behind on Earth. The beacon had summoned her into the unknown, but at a great personal cost. "Was it worth it?" the voice asked, "to leave your family behind for this mission?" Tears welled in Voss's eyes. "I left because I believe in a better future for her," she said. "If we fail here, her future will be even darker." The void softened, and the voice replied, "Then hold on to that belief." The group reunites. The isolation lifted, and the team reappeared together on the platform, their expressions reflecting the weight of what they had faced. "What happened?" Nadia asked, her voice shaking. "We were tested," Kane said, his tone grim. "The beacon forced us to face our truths, our doubts, regrets, and choices. And we passed," Voss added. "We're still standing." The platform began to rise, and the void transformed into a brilliant expanse of stars. The beacon's voice returned, carrying a tone of approval. "You have faced yourselves and each other. Now face the future. Unity will demand more." Ahead, a gateway of light opened, and the team stepped forward, knowing the challenges were far from over. But now, their unity was forged not just in necessity, but in shared understanding. As the gateway of light engulfed the team, they emerged into a breathtaking celestial expanse. They were no longer aboard the luminary, nor in any physical place they could understand. Instead, they floated within an endless starfield, connected by shimmering bridges of energy. Above them, a massive sphere of radiant light hovered, pulsating like a living heart. Symbols and patterns cascaded across its surface, a language of pure energy. Around it, smaller orbs orbited in perfect synchrony, each glowing with a distinct hue. "Unity requires harmony," the voice intoned, resonating through their very beings. "Prove that your strengths can converge without discord." The sphere flared, and the orbs began to shift, their movements erratic. Pulses of energy lashed out, forming intricate obstacles between the team and the central sphere. The orbs challenge. The team quickly realized they were being tasked with stabilizing the orbs. Each one radiated a unique energy signature that aligned with a specific strength or characteristic. The only way to balance them was for each member to play a critical role in tuning the orbs to the same frequency. Dr. Voss and Counselor Lirath took the lead on interpreting the beacon's energy patterns. Voss's scientific expertise combined with Lirath's natural affinity for energy harmonics allowed them to create a rudimentary translation of the orb frequencies. "This one resonates with intellect," Voss said, pointing to a violet orb that pulsed erratically. "Lirith, can you channel its flow?" Lirith nodded, her translucent hands weaving intricate patterns as she manipulated the energy. The orb's wild pulsing began to settle, its glow steadying. Callus and Nadia tackled the second orb, which represented courage. The orb demanded not just bravery, but an unwavering belief in the mission. As it flared, it created illusions designed to prey on their fears. Callus growled as he saw the specter of his clan, their eyes accusing him of abandoning their traditions. Nadia, meanwhile, was confronted by an image of her family back on Earth, pleading with her to come home. "This isn't real," Nadia shouted, gripping Callus's arm. "It's testing us, showing us our doubts. Don't let it win." Callus roared, his claws slashing through the illusion. Together, they focused their willpower on the orb, and its chaotic glow calmed. Cain and Rax faced the third orb, which radiated leadership and sacrifice. It unleashed a torrent of challenges that forced them to work in perfect sync, from navigating collapsing bridges of light to deflecting energy blasts. "You're not bad in a fight," Rax admitted grudgingly as Cain vaulted over a crumbling platform to disable an energy disruptor. "Same to you," Cain replied, offering a rare grin. "Let's finish this." Their combined efforts stabilized the orb, which emitted a harmonious chime before joining the others in orbit. The harmony unfolds. With all three orbs stabilized, they began to orbit the central sphere in a perfect rhythm. The beacon pulsed brighter, and a wave of energy cascaded across the team, filling them with warmth and clarity. "Unity achieved through harmony is greater than the sum of its parts," the voice said, its tone filled with approval. "But unity must endure. Prepare for the final test." The central sphere descended, opening like a blossoming flower to reveal a path of light. Beyond it, a vision flickered, countless civilizations, human and alien, standing together under the glow of a unified star. Cain looked at his team, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and determination. "We're almost there," he said. "Whatever's next, we face it together." As they stepped onto the path, the celestial expanse around them shifted, coalescing into something vast and incomprehensible. The beacon's final challenge awaited, and the future of countless worlds hung in the balance. The team stepped onto the shimmering path, their surroundings shifting into a kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Each step seemed to echo endlessly, as though the very fabric of reality was responding to their presence. Ahead, the radiant sphere of the beacon pulsed, casting intricate patterns across the void. Suddenly, the path fragmented, splitting into countless smaller bridges that snaked through the starry expanse. Each bridge led to a glowing pedestal, atop which hovered crystalline fragments radiating with a unique energy. The voice of the beacon thundered in their minds. "Unity is forged through choice. Choose the fragments wisely, for each holds a piece of the future." The fragments' dilemma. As the team examined the scene, symbols began to hover over the pedestals. Each symbol represented a principle: strength, compassion, knowledge, resilience, sacrifice, innovation, and hope. Voss approached a pedestal radiating a soft blue light. "Each fragment must be part of a larger whole," she said, her analytical mind already racing. "But which ones? And how do we know what the beacon will accept?" "The beacon tests unity," Lirith said, her voice calm but firm. "The answer is not in individual power, but in balance. Each fragment we choose must reflect our collective purpose." Dividing the task. The team split up to assess the fragments, each bringing their own perspective. Dr. Voss analyzed fragments related to knowledge and innovation, her scientific mind unraveling the intricate energy signatures they emitted. She chose the fragment of knowledge, convinced that understanding would guide the future. Cain gravitated toward the fragment of resilience, reflecting his belief in humanity's indomitable spirit. "We've survived because we refuse to give up," he said. "This belongs with us." Rax hesitated between strength and sacrifice, his warrior's pride clashing with the humility he had begun to learn. At last, he chose sacrifice, saying, "Strength means nothing if it cannot protect those who depend on it." Lyra selected compassion, her voice filled with conviction. Without compassion, unity is hollow. It is the foundation of trust and understanding. Callus and Nadia, who worked as a team, debated fiercely over the fragment of hope. "Hope is what drives innovation," Nadia argued. Callus nodded reluctantly. "And without hope, strength falters. We take this one." The beacon's response. As the last fragment was chosen, the pedestals dissolved, and the fragments floated toward the radiant sphere. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the beacon flared with blinding light, its energy coalescing into a single unified symbol that hovered in the air. "You have chosen balance," the voice intoned. "Unity is not the dominance of one ideal, but the harmony of many. Yet, unity must stand against the tide of discord. One final trial remains." The platform beneath them quaked, and the light of the beacon dimmed. A cold, suffocating presence filled the void, and the stars flickered out one by one. From the darkness emerged a colossal figure, its form shifting and amorphous, a representation of entropy and division. "Prove that your unity can withstand destruction." The shadow's assault. The entity struck without warning, unleashing waves of chaotic energy that fractured the platform into floating shards. The team scrambled to regroup, each member using their chosen fragment to counter the assault. Voss and Lireth worked to stabilize the crumbling platform, using knowledge and compassion to reinforce its structure. Kane and Rax launched a coordinated attack, their resilience and sacrifice keeping the entity's chaotic energy at bay. Callus and Nadia inspired the group with their unyielding hope, their fragment amplifying the strength of the others. The entity roared, its form fracturing as the team's unity pushed back against the chaos. Slowly but surely, the balance they had forged began to overwhelm the entity, its darkness dissipating into the void. As the last vestiges of the entity dissolved, the beacon flared once more, its light brighter and more radiant than ever. The voice returned, carrying a tone of triumph and reverence. "You have proven your unity. Humanity has become the light that others may follow. Step forward and claim the eternal beacon." The path reformed, leading the team toward the heart of the radiant sphere. Together, they walked forward, their bond stronger than ever, ready to embrace the final chapter of their journey. The team walked forward, their steps synchronized, each member feeling the weight of what they had accomplished and the burden of what lay ahead. The path before them stretched infinitely, but the radiant sphere beckoned them onward, now shining with a blinding clarity. The voice of the beacon, softer yet more profound than before, reverberated in their minds. "Humanity has proven its worth. You have embraced unity not as a simple concept, but as a living force. Now, you must light the way for others. Step into the light." Kane felt a pull in his chest, a magnetic force that drew him toward the heart of the beacon. His hand reached out, and as it made contact with the radiant core, a surge of energy coursed through him, filling every cell of his being. It was a sensation both overwhelming and invigorating, an infusion of the knowledge, hope, and sacrifice they had just demonstrated. Beside him, Voss gasped as she felt the same rush of energy. This is beyond anything I've ever imagined." Lirith's ethereal form shimmered, and she spoke with quiet reverence. "This is the beginning. We are the flame that will guide the galaxy forward." The beacon's light began to expand, the energy not just enveloping them, but extending outward, reaching beyond the stars. The fragmented civilizations, once lost and divided, now felt the warmth of that light. The darkness that had clung to the farthest reaches of the galaxy began to recede, replaced by a growing sense of unity. The beacon had chosen them not just as champions of humanity, but as the harbingers of a new age of cooperation. The transformation of the galaxy. Across the galaxy, the effect of the beacon was instantaneous. Communications between distant worlds flared to life, as if the light had bridged the vast distances that once separated civilizations. Leaders of species long estranged from each other now found common ground, as if the shared energy of the beacon had unlocked the potential for mutual understanding. The most divided factions set aside their weapons, inspired by the harmony they sensed through the beacon's light. Humanity, once isolated and struggling in a galaxy full of higher powers and alien threats, now stood as a symbol of hope. What had once been a small, divided species was now the catalyst for something much larger, a movement toward unity born from the trials of the beacon. But Kane knew that this was just the beginning. The beacon had not simply united them, it had given them a responsibility. The energy flowing through them was not a gift to hoard, but a force to share, a light to guide others who would follow their example. He turned to the others. We've proven what we can do together, but the true challenge starts now. We have to lead, not just in war, but in peace. Rax, his stoic expression softer now, nodded in agreement. Unity is fragile. We must protect it, nurture it, or it will fracture like glass. Callus, his posture more upright than before, added, "The galaxy will test us. We will face those who fear change, those who will try to tear this unity apart, but we stand as one. A new era." With the beacon's light enveloping them, the team felt the bond between them deepen, an unspoken understanding that they were no longer just individuals, but representatives of something far greater than themselves. They were the architects of a new era, and as the beacon pulsed one final time, sending a wave of energy into the stars, the team knew they had taken the first step. The darkness still lingered in corners of the galaxy, but it was no match for the light they now carried. Humanity was no longer just a species among many. It was the beacon, lighting the way for the entire galaxy, guiding those who would follow toward a brighter future. The path ahead would not be easy, and the trials would continue. But with unity forged through struggle, compassion, strength, and hope, they were ready to lead. And with each step, they would show the universe that there was a way forward, a way that would bind them all together in the eternal light of the beacon.